Mom. Mom. Wake up, please. I was suddenly shaken awake to find my daughter's worried face looming over me. What's wrong, honey? Mom, please, you have to divorce Dad now. What? That single word snapped me out of my drowsiness. What did she just say? Divorce Dad, she definitely said that. Why? What's going on? Because. What my daughter revealed next was shocking. My name is Emily, 34 years old. I'm a dedicated salesperson at a major insurance company in New York. I have to drop off and pick up my daughter from daycare, so I can't work overtime. This means I have to pack as much work as possible into my 9-to-5 schedule. I've been in this job for over 10 years, starting even before I got married. I've built a respectable career and now hold a decent position in the company. Having a child and being married don't mean I have to compromise on my ambitions. Why am I so driven? It's all for my daughter, Maya. Maya just turned 5 and is a bright, mature girl, making me wonder sometimes if she really is our child. I want to provide her every learning opportunity and let her experience all the good things in life. But nowadays, everything costs money. I work hard every day to save as much as I can for her future, never knowing what might happen. You might think, don't you have a husband? Aren't you both working? Yes, my husband Ken works for a regular company, but his salary has been decreasing over the past few years due to poor company performance. His recent paycheck was less than a third of mine. To put it bluntly, he's not exactly reliable financially. Just the other night, after Maya went to bed, he came to me, looking guilty. Sorry, Emily, can I borrow some money? Money? Why? I haven't even received this month's household allowance from you. I'll give you everything next month. I got invited to a lot of parties this month and I'm short on cash. You spent your entire paycheck? I can't believe this. I'm sorry. I just couldn't say no. This has been the pattern lately. He either makes excuses to not contribute to the household expenses or asks me for money, mostly for parties or to send to his parents. I'm too exhausted to even confront him about it. But what would he do if I didn't lend him the money? From what I heard, he has no savings due to his low salary, and his account is practically empty. If he needs money, he has to borrow it from somewhere, risking falling into debt. I don't want our daughter to grow up knowing her father is irresponsible to that extent. That's why I always end up lending him money. Here, $200 should be enough, right? Thanks, Emily. I'll pay you back next month. You always say that, but you never do. I'm sorry. I promise, next month for sure. I'll even turn down party invitations. You better. We have Maya to look after. I know. I sighed, doubting whether he really understood, but that's all I could do. I don't do all this just because I love him. It's because he's a good father to Maya. On his 2 days off each week, he always spends time with her. That day too, he said to me, Emily, I'll take care of Maya. Why don't you go out and relax for a bit? What about the housework? It's okay. We can order delivery, and I'll do what I can around the house. Are you sure? Can you handle Maya on your own? When I asked her, my daughter, half asleep yet with a cute smile, gave me a big hug. I'll be fine. I can stay home alone with Dad. Really? Then, can Mommy go shopping for a bit? Sure. Oh, but bring back a souvenir for me, okay? Of course. I'll get your favorite bread from the bakery. Really? Yay. Thank you, Mommy. Despite being just 5, her understanding amazes me. I'm not too worried since she isn't home alone. But still, leaving her with my husband does give me a slight unease. For emergencies, I've put my phone number in her pouch. I've always told her to call me if anything happens, I reassure myself. And so, I went shopping alone for the first time in a while. But even at the department store, I couldn't bring myself to look at anything for me. In the end, I bought a dress she might like and her favorite chocolate croissants to bring home. I'm back. As I opened the door, my daughter ran towards me at incredible speed, leaping into my arms with a beaming smile. Welcome back, Mommy. Did you enjoy shopping? I'm back, Maya. Yes, it was nice for a change. Here, your souvenir. My favorite dress. And chocolate croissants. Let's eat them tomorrow. Speaking of which, where's Daddy? Daddy? He's on the phone on the balcony. On the balcony, my husband was smoking and talking on the phone. Tapping on the window, he looked surprised, quickly ended the call, and said, "You're back," in a rushed tone. I'm back. Who were you on the phone with? Eh? Oh, just some work stuff. Leaving Maya alone? Sorry about that. It seemed urgent. I'm sorry, Maya. As he grinned sheepishly, Maya puffed her cheeks. Mommy, Daddy was on the phone many times today. Even when I wanted to play with him. Is that so? Yes. I wanted to read the picture book together. Glancing at my husband, he awkwardly averted his gaze. Afterward, we had dinner together and I made sure to spend as much time as possible with Maya. That night, I stopped my husband as he was going to bed. Hey Ken, what's going on? Work calls even on weekends? Are you that busy now? Eh? Yeah, actually, I've been having to do lots of overtime. You've been coming home late for the past few months. I thought it was because of parties. That was overtime. Anyway, I made sure Maya was safe. Forgive me for the phone call, okay? But Maya looked lonely. From now on, if you're busy, just let me know in advance. I'll take Maya out myself. Got it. I'm going to bed now. He said goodnight and went to the bedroom, clutching his phone tightly. For some reason, for the past 6 months, it's become routine for me to sleep with Maya, and he uses the bedroom alone. It's not that I mind sleeping with my daughter, but it naturally reduces our time as a couple. My husband doesn't complain, seemingly content with the situation. If everyone's happy with it, that's fine, but I'm not just a mother, I'm his wife too. As a woman, I can't help but feel a bit lonely, not being desired. On a certain day. Mom. Wake up. Startled awake by the shaking, I opened my eyes to see my daughter's anxious face. Glancing at the bedside digital clock, I saw it was 2 a.m. The house was silent, my husband must be asleep. I slowly sat up and asked her. What's wrong? Mom, please. Please? Divorce Dad now. What? Her words snapped me out of my drowsiness. What did she just say? Divorce Dad. Yes, that's what she said. Trembling, I asked cautiously. Why? What made you say that? Because, if things go on like this, you'll die. Die. What are you talking about? I'm not sick or anything. No, it's not that. Dad is. Dad is going to. What do you mean? Tears began to stream down her face. As I gently stroked her back, she calmed down and started to explain. I woke up to go to the bathroom, and I heard Dad on the phone in his room. On the phone? What was he talking about? He said, I'll make it look like an accident. Once the insurance money comes in, it'll be ours. I didn't know what insurance money meant, but I understood he was planning to make something happen to you. No, that can't be. Ken would do that to me? And, Mom, Dad told the person on the phone, I love you. Isn't I love you a phrase you only say to someone you love more than anyone else? Why did Dad say that to someone other than you? Maya. She looked at me again, tears welling up. She was only 5. I had thought she was just 5, but in reality, she was already 5. She probably understood the meaning of words and could sense feelings from our tone and expressions. Maybe children are more sensitive to these things. In her way, she was trying to protect me. At that moment, I was overwhelmed with guilt towards my daughter and anger towards my husband. She had tried so hard to protect me. I couldn't ignore her brave action. I had to take care of this myself. Looking into my daughter's eyes, I began. Maya, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Okay. If what you told me is true, I can't stay with your father anymore. Okay. I'm going to leave this house. What do you want to do, Maya? I want to be with you. Are you sure? Yes. I only want you. No one else. Maya. Okay, let's go together. Okay. I instructed her to pack her belongings quietly. She filled her backpack, trying not to make noise, probably being cautious not to wake her father. When had she grown up so much? Tears welled up as I watched her. Determined to change our situation, I started packing too. I left the wedding ring on the table and left the house with my daughter. When we rang the doorbell of my parents' house at 5 a.m., my mother appeared in her pajamas. Emily? And Maya too. What's going on at this hour? Sorry, Mom. Can we stay with you for a while? Of course, but what happened? Can we come in? I need to talk to Dad too. After settling Maya in the next room, where she fell asleep immediately, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea my mother had prepared. I took a sip and slowly began to speak. Actually, it seems like Ken is trying to stage an accident to harm me. At those words, my parents were speechless. Shaken, my father managed to utter. What do you mean? Why would Ken do such a thing? According to Maya, he was saying I love you to someone on the phone. I think he's having an affair. An affair? But, evidence. That's why I brought this, his tablet that he always uses. Tablet. I pulled out the tablet from my bag, the one my husband used at home. If I was right, he wouldn't leave any messages on his phone. He always left his phone around the house, unguarded. Considering that, he must be using the tablet for messaging. The tablet was usually in his bag, and since I never used it, it wasn't locked. As my parents watched, I opened the email folder on the tablet. Sure enough, there were numerous exchanges with a woman who seemed to be his mistress. Is this? My mother pointed at the emails, her voice trembling. There, in detail, was the plan to stage an accident involving me. I took photos of everything as evidence and printed out all the messages, using my father's printer. Then, my phone, which was in my bag, rang. It was a call from Ken. Without hesitation, I answered and turned on the speakerphone so my parents could hear. Hello? Emily? Where are you? I woke up and both of you were gone. I got worried. Is that all you wanted to say? What's wrong? I was worried. Worried? Even though you were planning to harm me in an accident? His tone changed immediately, not expecting his plan to be discovered. He probably started talking to his mistress on the phone as soon as I fell asleep. He must be terrified now, realizing that I knew about his plan. He didn't know that I had a strong ally in Maya. I revealed the truth to him. Maya told me that you were planning to harm me in an accident. Maya did. No way, it's true. Specifically, she told me about your phone conversation with your mistress, planning to harm me for the insurance money. How did you? So it's true. You're having an affair and plotting for my insurance money, aren't you? He slipped up and then fell silent. There was no room for leniency. I can't bear the shame of having a scumbag like you as a husband. I'll take care of Maya myself. You can go have your fun with your mistress. Don't ever get involved with us again. I'll make sure you regret betraying us. Before I knew it, I was shouting, driven by my emotions. I ended the call without waiting for his response. That woke Maya up. Mom, what happened? Sorry, I woke you. No, it's okay. What about Dad? It's all over now. Really? So we can be together, just you and me, forever? She smiled happily, and I nodded vigorously. I hugged her as tightly as I could. Later, I divorced Ken. I managed to get alimony and child support through a lawyer. Though his plan for staging an accident could have involved the police, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it for Maya's sake. I left the alimony and child support to my lawyer and planned to have nothing more to do with him. He was disowned by his parents and quickly dumped by his mistress. Now, he struggles every month with a low salary, alimony, and child support. Meanwhile, I found a new home and began a new life with Maya. She had to change her preschool, but she seems happy at the new one. There may be many challenges ahead for us. But with Maya, my strongest partner, I'm ready to face them all. You should stay away from this guy. At my wedding, my 6-year-old niece pointed at him and declared. Since she was 2, she had shown a mysterious ability, and her words carried weight. However, her sudden statement at such a joyous occasion threw me into a panic. As I scrambled to handle the situation, she continued. Because this guy. Hearing what my niece revealed next, his face turned pale. I am Mina, 28 years old. I live with my parents, my brother, and my 6-year-old niece, Amy, at home. My brother lost his wife to illness 3 years ago and returned home with Amy, who was then 1 year old. Amy had just started walking, holding on to things. Her search for her mother, calling out Mama, was heartbreakingly earnest. We all doted on her, and she grew especially close to me. I was a single picture book author, working from home. One of my books became popular, and I started receiving substantial royalties. My brother wondered why I still lived at home despite my earnings. You could afford an apartment or a house, right? Don't you want to try living alone? But if I leave, I won't see Amy, right? I don't want that. I appreciate how you feel, but you need to find your own happiness too. You won't meet anyone staying at home all the time. Even my brother, still young, hadn't considered remarriage, focusing solely on raising Amy. As Amy grew, she started showing unusual abilities around age 2. For example, when our mother, always in a rush, lost her car keys, Amy brought them to her from somewhere, saying, "Here." She only smiled when asked where she found them. Once, on a clear day, she insisted on putting a foldable umbrella in my bag as I was leaving. I took it to stop her crying, and it turned out to be handy when a sudden downpour hit. The most shocking instance was when my brother couldn't use his car for commuting because Amy wouldn't let go of the keys. He had to take the train instead, and that day, a major accident occurred on his usual route. We all looked at each other, realizing he could have been involved had he driven. While we all found Amy a bit odd, we treated her like any other child, keeping her abilities a secret outside the family to prevent any strange looks. Amy's powers always seemed to manifest to help the family, and otherwise, she was a typical, adorable toddler. Then, one day, I finally met someone. At the library, while reading, a man approached me, saying, "That's an interesting book, isn't it?" We hit it off, sharing a love for reading and the same favorite authors. When I mentioned my picture books, his eyes lit up. I've been a fan. I recognized you from the author photo in the books afterward. I'm so happy to meet you in person. That's nice to hear. I live with my niece, and I often write books that I think she'd like. It seems a lot of children's book authors love kids. I love children too. I'd like to meet your niece someday. His interest in children's books seemed unusual for a single man, but he was kind and expressed a wish to meet Amy, which pleased me. My books have been well received, and there's talk of turning them into a series. Really? The royalties must be substantial. That's impressive. As Luke and I grew closer, we started dating, and he proposed. When I introduced him to my parents and brother after a date, his bright and confident responses won them over. But when I tried to introduce him to my niece, she simply said, "No," and hid away. It was unusual for her, as she wasn't shy around people. I asked her why, but she didn't answer. After that, whenever he came over, she would retreat to her room, clearly disliking his presence. This worried me, But there was something else on my mind too. Luke had lost his father when he was young, and since he had no relatives, his only family was his mother. But he couldn't introduce me to her. My mother just had major surgery and can't have visitors, he explained. That's worrisome, I replied. He then told me his mother's prognosis wasn't good and she had only 6 months to live. That's why I want to get married soon, to give her some peace of mind. I had planned to date him a bit longer before getting married, but hearing this, I decided to go ahead with the wedding. There's something I need to discuss. I want my mother to live as long as possible, so I'm planning to get her advanced medical treatment, which is expensive. That sounds like a good idea. I have some money in a time deposit, but it matures in a month. It would be a waste to withdraw it now. Is that so? I don't know much about these things. Could you lend me some money until it matures next month? I'll write you an IOU. Considering his situation, I arranged $20,000 for him. The following days were a whirlwind of choosing the venue, the dress, house hunting, and planning our honeymoon. I'd prefer to live near my parents' house if possible. I don't want to be far from my niece. I love that about you. Let's look for something close by. Thank you. Let's have our honeymoon domestically. I need to renew my passport, and it might take some time. That's fine. There are plenty of beautiful places here. There was a lot to decide, but those were happy and exciting days. Luke was to pay for our new home and the honeymoon with his maturing deposit. I felt secure leaving it to him. I paid the $1,000 deposit for the wedding, and the rest was to be paid later. I decided to cover all the expenses as I had many guests from my publishing contacts, friends, and relatives. I expected a considerable amount in wedding gifts, so the actual cost wouldn't be too high. He said he would have around 10 guests, his mother, a few relatives, his boss, and some friends. I was surprised at the small number. Is that all? I'll have about 150 guests. I only invited those who truly rejoice in our marriage. Since you have many guests, it's fine if mine are fewer. That's thoughtful. I'm sorry, I have many work-related guests. Maybe I should cut down the list. No, invite them all. The more guests, the more gifts we'll receive, right? Ahaha, just kidding. I want many people to see how beautiful you look. Luke said he would submit our marriage registration after the wedding, so I left it with him after filling it out. And then, the wedding day arrived. Dressed in my wedding gown, I entered the chapel with him, greeted by applause and feeling utterly blissful. That's when it happened. Amy ran up to us, blocking our way, and shouted with a determined look, pointing at him. You should stay away from this guy. I was initially startled by her outburst at such a joyous event, but then I noticed her eyes, tinged with blue, looking earnestly at me. Whenever she had shown her mysterious abilities since she was 2, her eyes would turn this shade. I must listen to what Amy has to say to the end. That was my instinctive feeling. My brother hurried over to pick up Amy and take her away, but I stopped him. Why should I stay away from him? Because, you know, the lady and the kid he lives with are crying. They seem hungry. They're saying they don't have any money. Hey. I'm single. The revelation that he was married with a child was shocking, but I couldn't believe Amy would lie. Also, he's been taking money from other grandparents. They're angry and want it back. What? Then, the money you got from Mina, did it all disappear at the casino? Why? How do you know that? The money I had given him was supposed to be for his mother's advanced medical treatment. Had he used it for gambling? As Amy continued to reveal more, Luke's face grew increasingly pale. What is this kid saying? Creepy. Stay away from me. His agitation made it clear that Amy was telling the truth. Then Amy continued. This man is trying to run away with a lot of money. The large sum of money at the venue had to be the wedding gifts. I quickly checked with a friend who had been at the reception desk. She was supposed to give it to me, but Luke had taken it, saying, I'll be the one to collect it. My brother hurriedly brought Luke's bag from the waiting room. Inside, we found all the wedding gift. You were planning to run off with the wedding gifts? No, I just took them to hand out to everyone later. That's all. I wasn't going to run away with them. His desperate pleas echoed emptily in the hall. At first, some guests were confused by our exchange, but soon it was clear to everyone that Luke was the villain. Even more shocking, his bag contained photos of his wife and child and his real driver's license. Luke, your name is different. What's going on? Perhaps realizing he couldn't make any more excuses, he tried to run, but a relative sitting nearby restrained him. Dad, call the police. As I shouted, Luke shook off his arm and knelt down, begging for forgiveness. I'm sorry for deceiving you. It was just a moment of weakness. It's too calculated to be just a whim. My daughter really loves Mina's books. Forgive me for her sake. My initial discomfort at a single man's interest in children's books was correct. It was influenced by his child. I was a perfect target for someone like Luke. Please, just don't call the police. The police are already here. As soon as my brother said this, several officers entered the venue. They dragged away the man, who was still prostrate on the ground, begging for mercy. I hate the police. Mina, help me. All I could do was stare blankly at the pitiful sight of this man. I was surprised at how quickly the police had arrived, but it turned out he had been marked by them for a while, suspected of swindling money from elderly people. They had solidified their suspicions and decided to intervene at the wedding. Moreover, the few guests he had brought were all hired strangers, causing a stir when they realized they weren't going to be paid as promised, which led to the police questioning them as well. In the end, we had to cancel the wedding. I apologized to the guests and returned all the wedding gifts. I'm immensely grateful to Amy for uncovering his secrets, although she fell asleep in my brother's arms, completely exhausted from the ordeal, soon after the commotion died down. The man was sentenced to prison, and I sued him for the $20,000 I had lent him, $40,000 for the wedding expenses, and an additional $20,000 for damages due to marriage fraud. He also faced divorce and claims for alimony and child support from his real wife. Others he had deceived were demanding repayment as well. Once out of prison, he faced a mountain of debt. To ensure he didn't run away, my uncle, who runs a deep-sea fishing business, agreed to take him on and keep him busy. It will surely be a long road for him. As for me, I've settled back into a peaceful life at my parents' home. Honestly, I was sad at the thought of living away from Amy, so perhaps things worked out for the best. Recently, while walking my dog, I bumped into a childhood friend from the neighborhood. Mina, I'm going to marry this guy, she blurted out unexpectedly. I was surprised, but it felt right. We knew each other well, and it meant I could stay close to Amy. Most importantly, if Amy approves of him, he must be the right choice. Now, we're happily starting our relationship.
Cassie, you need to run away now. With those parting words, the call ended abruptly, and no matter how many times I redialed, I couldn't get through again. My usually calm mother's tone had been fraught with urgency, convincing me that something was definitely amiss. What could have happened to Mom? She had been battling illness for several years and had recently been hospitalized. We used to talk on the phone every day before her hospitalization, but since she had been admitted, the calls had stopped, which puzzled me. I rushed to the hospital, but by the time I arrived, my mother had already passed away. No. Overwhelmed with grief, I was at a loss for words. The hospital where my mother had been admitted was an hour or two away from my apartment. I regretted not acting sooner, thinking I could have been there. The meaning of her last words, "Run away right now," remained shrouded in mystery, and I would never come to know their significance. My name is Cassie. I'm a 25-year-old office worker. My parents divorced when I was very young, and my mother raised me with great care as a single parent. Though we saw each other less after I started living on my own and working, my mother was very kind, taking me to my favorite amusement parks many times when I was little and even making it possible for me to attend university despite our tight finances. And now that such a gentle mother had left this world after her long fight with illness, but I was preoccupied with the enigmatic words she left behind. Run away right now. I returned to my childhood home for the first time in a while to prepare for the funeral. Wait, what's this? Entering the living room filled with nostalgia, I found the room in disarray. Drawers and closets had been especially ransacked, and upon closer inspection, I realized my mother's valuables had been stolen. Even the necklace I had given her with my first paycheck was gone. I immediately contacted the police, but they suggested it might be the work of a serial burglar that had been active in the area. Leaving the matter in the hands of the police, I faced the day of the funeral. Many people came to mourn my mother's death that day. People who had been kind to us in the past attended, which brought back fond memories. But I also felt the pang of loss, realizing I would now have to live without any close family. However, I resolved to send my mother off with a smile, sharing memories of her with others. After the funeral, a man approached me. It's been a while. Do you remember me? I didn't recognize the familiar face of the young man who claimed to be an acquaintance of my mother's. Who might you be? Well, you were little, so it's no surprise you don't remember. I'm your brother Ethan, he said with a smile. I had never heard of having a brother, so I was shocked, nor had I ever met this man. Seeing my disbelief, Ethan showed me a photograph. Look, here's Mom, and this is you. Indeed, the woman in the photo was unmistakably my mother from her younger days, and beside her stood a child that looked just like Ethan. It appeared he truly was my brother, and I felt a surge of joy knowing I had family. But why had my mother hidden his existence? I had no idea I had a brother. That's surprising. Mom's gone, and it's been tough, hasn't it? From now on, I'll be there to support you. I nodded at my brother's words, but questions lingered. I had begged for a sibling many times as a child. If I had a brother, why wouldn't my mother have introduced us? Perhaps there were circumstances I didn't know about. I forced myself to accept this and then suddenly thought to ask Ethan another question. By the way, what about Dad? Isn't he here? Dad said he didn't want anything to do with me, so he didn't come. That's a shame. I'd like to meet him someday. A cruel man, he is. Just like he abandoned you too. It felt harsh that a man who had once been married wouldn't attend his former wife's funeral. Afterward, Ethan kept in touch, concerned about me, and we often dined together. He told me that our father had repeatedly asked our mother for money after the divorce and that he was worried he might start coming to me next. Having a brother who cared so much about me felt incredibly reassuring. However, as I sorted through my mother's belongings, I was about to discover a shocking truth. It's been a month since Mom's funeral, and I was halfway through sorting her belongings when I found a notebook in her drawer. Flipping through it, it seemed to be her diary. She'd been writing in it daily since before the divorce, and there were as many as 10 volumes. With a feeling of guilt towards my mother, I opened the page. Seeing her beautiful handwriting, nostalgia almost brought me to tears. Ethan came to visit, despite the agreement with my ex that I'd never see him again. I was so happy. I secretly gave him some money. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. To think that such exchanges were happening without my knowing. As I read on with amusement, the tone began to change. Ethan showed up again but just said money and left quickly. I started to feel a sense of unease with every behavior of my brother that Mom had recorded. From this page on, his behavior seemed increasingly strange. Today I was threatened by Ethan again and ended up giving him money. It was clearly written in my mother's handwriting. Threatened? What did that mean? I had a bad feeling. If I refused to give money frequently, I get told harsh things. Today it was your only worth is your money. The content, written in trembling letters, seemed far too real to be a lie. Why would my brother say such things? I'm just bearing it because it must be his rebellious face, convinced by the words my mother had written to reassure herself. I turned the page only to find something unthinkable. Today when I refused, he brought a knife from the dining room and threatened me. I got scared and gave him the money. I know I can't keep this up, but what should I do? I was stunned that such a thing had happened, shocked at my brother's true nature and ashamed for not having realized it earlier. This person seemed like a stranger compared to the brother who had smiled kindly on that day. Even though he's my precious son and we live apart, I can't go to the police. It might be my fault for the divorce. My heart clenched at that sentence. I understood her feelings, but I could no longer see the person who threatened my beloved mother with a knife as my brother. He said he would squeeze money out of his sister too. I absolutely don't want that to happen. It seems she kept the existence of my brother a secret thinking of me, but Mom's diary told me everything. I must protect her from Ethan before I'm gone. That phone call that day must have been her trying to tell me about my brother. She must have been afraid that harm would come to me. The thought of it made it impossible for me to forgive my brother, who had caused Mom so much suffering and attended her funeral with an innocent face. Holding my mother's diary, I resolved to take revenge on my brother. "What's the rush calling me here? I have something to discuss with you, Ethan." 3 days after reading the diary, I called my brother to our family home. It seemed dangerous to be alone with a man who would use a knife to threaten, but I had a plan. "I know what you did to Mom." He was briefly startled but quickly regained his composure, intending to keep it hidden. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. You've been extorting money from her by threatening her, haven't you?" "No. I don't know what you're talking about." He refused to admit it, continuing to play the kind older brother. Realizing this would get us nowhere, I decided to act to make him confess. "Before Mom died, she told me everything. I pretended not to know, all for revenge." Hearing this, his demeanor changed. With a sigh, he slumped into the chair, looking at me with annoyance. So you found out, huh? Why did you threaten Mom? And with a knife?" He pondered theatrically and then said with a smile. "Stress relief?" His smile had no trace of guilt. He believed he had done nothing wrong. "That's outrageous. Mom didn't even go to the police because she cared about you. That's only natural. I'm her son. I was just getting my allowance." He said this without a trace of remorse. I felt dizzy. I couldn't believe that this person was my blood-related brother. "I'm going to the police," I declared. "Huh? Without evidence, they won't listen to you." He scoffed. "I have evidence," I responded firmly, pulling out my mother's diary. "It's all here, written by Mom herself. If I just tear this up right now," he threatened, "destroying this won't help you. Mom left plenty of diaries and other evidence." His face twisted in anger, shaking with fury upon realizing he couldn't erase the evidence immediately. "So, I just need to make sure you can't go to the cops, right?" he yelled, kicking the chair and knocking everything in the room to the floor. Faces and glasses shattered, creating a terrible mess. Once he ran out of things to throw, he dashed towards the dining room. He returned, knife in hand, inching closer to me. "If you agree to be my cash cow right here, I'll let you off." Just then, the sound of a police siren filled the air nearby. Panicked, he looked around wildly, and upon seeing the officers enter the house, he stood frozen, knife still in hand. "Why are the cops here now?" he screamed in disbelief. "You seem flustered," I noted as the officers entered the living room. "It's because I asked them to come." "What?" he gaped, dumbfounded. I decided it was time for the grand reveal. In fact, I asked a colleague from work to call the police when the time came. "What?" I had anticipated that the diary alone wouldn't be enough evidence, so I planned to catch him in the act of threatening me with a knife. It was all an act. "Cut the crap," he shouted, lunging at me, but the officers were quick to restrain him. "Hey, stop messing around. Let me go." He struggled and flailed, trying to break free, but he was securely held down by 2 officers. Finally handcuffed, he realized there was no escape and calmed down. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I was wrong." Desperate to avoid arrest, he began apologizing profusely. His face contorted as if he was about to cry. "No matter how much you apologize, Mom can't hear you anymore." "I don't care about that. Just don't involve the cops, please." To me and Mom, "I don't care" is not an option. She was afraid and troubled by you all the time. A parent is nothing but a cash cow for their kids. He kept spewing insults, but ignoring his tantrums. The officers led him away as he started to sob. "I was wrong. Please, no police. I will never forgive you for tormenting Mom. Officer, please take him away." As I made my statement, he distorted his face in a last-ditch attempt at self-preservation, a pathetic sight with his nose running, as the police took him away. The police investigation later revealed he was a habitual burglar, and he was sentenced to prison. Perhaps his constant aversion to the police was due to his fear of his crimes being exposed. He had also been the one who ransacked our family home. He pawned the necklace I had given to Mom, and I lost something she cherished. Even in prison, he continued to cause trouble, extending his sentence with each incident. Though I lost my dear mother, I am now engaged to the colleague who called the police that day. He is kind and generous, and I am fortunate to have met him. Surely Mom is watching over us from heaven when we visit her grave to share the news. I have no doubt she will be pleased. Take care of the debt repayment. This abrupt email from my husband arrived while I was at work. Panicking, I called him, only to find him disturbingly calm. "I've fallen for another woman. I'm starting a new life with her." To make matters worse, he said he was taking the luxury car we just bought, which was in my name and still on loan. Ignoring my pleas to stop, he hung up, and that was the last I heard from him. And so, leaving behind a substantial debt, My husband disappeared with his mistress. Sarah, 35, with a 10-year-old son, Luke. Never imagined such cruelty could befall us. Confused about what to do next, my mind went blank. I was a family of 3 with my same-age husband, Alex, and our son. Luke was a curious child, always reading papers on the computer and asking for my farts. I often marveled at his intelligence, though his questions sometimes baffled me. Meanwhile, Alex struggled to keep a job, concerned about her future. I worked full-time, but recently, he had finally settled in a job for 3 years, securing a stable income. Lately, he suggested making memories as a family, so we splurged on a $50,000 RV. However, due to credit issues in Alex's name, I took out the loan. The RV's delivery day was supposed to be joyous, but it turned nightmarish. Enjoy the brand new RV. Since it's in your name, you handle the loan payments. Read the shocking email from Alex at work. Confused, I immediately called him. What do you mean? I've met someone I love. What are you talking about? I thought it was just a fling at first, but now I'm serious about her. We're starting anew. I'll file the divorce papers we wrote during our last fight. Bye. He hung up unilaterally. Realizing his betrayal for the first time, I felt as if I'd been hit in the head with a hammer. After that, no matter how many times I called, he never answered. Is this really happening? Returning home from work, I opened the drawer where the divorce papers were kept, only to find it empty. I was left with a debt of $50,000 for the RV. Unable to accept this, I continued to try contacting Alex, but he never responded. My son, sharp as he is, noticed something was wrong and looked at me with concern after dinner. Mom, you've been losing your appetite. Are you okay? Yeah, maybe I'm just tired. You looked up to the right. You shouldn't lie. Dad hasn't been home for 3 days. Did something happen? Startled by his astute observation, I took a deep breath and composed myself. Realizing I couldn't hide the truth forever, I told him everything. I see. That's just like Dad. Aren't you surprised? I kind of expected this might happen. As calm as he seemed, I knew deep down he must be saddened by our impending divorce. Apologizing to Luke in my heart, I threw myself into work, trying to erase the painful memories. But the body doesn't lie, and gradually my health deteriorated. That day, there was a training session at work, but I couldn't stand and ended up crouching down. I feel sick. I need to rest. I heard my colleagues' concerned voices, but before I could respond, I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in a hospital, told I needed extensive tests and had to stay. What a weakling I am. I'm so pathetic. Staring at the white hospital ceiling, connected to an IV drip, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. At that moment, my usually composed son rushed to my side, looking panicked. I quickly wiped away my tears. Mom, are you okay? You're not going to die, right? I wouldn't leave you behind. Good. When my teacher told me you were hospitalized, I thought my heart would stop. Luke, still just a 10-year-old, spoke like an adult. For his sake, I mustered the strength to get better. However, the diagnosis was more serious than expected. The doctor urged, surgery is needed as soon as possible. Please decide quickly. Following the doctor's advice, I underwent surgery. After being discharged from the hospital, a month had passed since my ex-husband left. When I checked the mailbox upon returning home, I found a car loan overdue notice. I thought the payments were being deducted from my account. This is strange. When I opened the safe to check my bank book, it was missing. In a panic, I checked my account balance with my ATM card, only to find that my savings of $30,000 had dwindled to a mere $5.87. This must be Alex's doing. I want to get it back, but I can't contact him. What should I do? Unable to sell the RV because I didn't have it in my possession, I felt as if everything was spiraling downwards, plunging me back into darkness. Seeing me in despair, my son placed his hand on my forehead. Your face is pale. Are you sick again? You don't seem to have a fever. I'm physically fine. It's just that your father took not only the car but also all our savings. I'm not ready to return to work yet, and I'm just overwhelmed. In that case, I'll deliver newspapers or find some work online. Seeing my 10-year-old son trying to encourage me, I reminded myself that I couldn't afford to be down. I'm sorry for worrying you. I'll pull myself together and do my best. Smiling at Luke, he beamed back and then suggested something unexpected. First, let's get the car back from Dad. How? The RV is in your name, right? Yes, that's right. Well then, Luke revealed a brilliant plan to me, one I never would have thought of. But we don't know where Dad is. I can find out using my cell phone. A month earlier, when we went hiking as a family, my dependable son, surprisingly, got lost. That's when we bought him a kid's cell phone with a GPS app installed, which both Alex and I had access to. I've been tracking his location in real time. He's been moving around a lot. I see. But even if we catch him, he might just make up some excuse, and we'll get nowhere. As I pondered, chin in hand, Luke grinned and said something mysterious. Don't worry, I've already taken care of it. What did you say? Unbeknownst to me, while I was hospitalized, Luke had been taking extraordinary actions on his own. My own son is so clever, it's unbelievable. I was amazed at what he had done, and he had even gathered information about Alex's mistress. Let's teach Dad a lesson for betraying us. Let's get ready then. And so, Luke and I teamed up, preparing for the impending confrontation. With Luke by my side, I'm invincible. Bring it on. 3 days later, my phone rang. Help me, please. Who might this be? Don't play dumb. It's your husband. The police are questioning me about you. If this continues, they might take me in. Do something. Okay. Wait just a little bit. I immediately took Luke and went to where Alex was. Surprisingly, it was a forest park near a house where camping was also possible. There he was, being questioned by the police in front of the RV, looking frantic. After sighing heavily, I told the police, let's talk this over. Please leave us for now. They left, and Alex, embarrassed by the onlookers, motioned for Luke and me to get inside the RV. The mistress inside glared at us with her legs crossed, but I couldn't care less. Good thing you came. But why are the police here? I filed a missing vehicle report because the RV disappeared. What? Why did you do that? It's a vehicle under my name, stolen. That's reason enough. Alex insisted that crimes between spouses don't hold up legally, but that's not the case. It was you who filed for divorce. Forgot about that? Driving someone else's car without permission is a crime. Luke researched and told me that. That kid's still a pain with his smart mouth. But I was just borrowing the car. No, I see. Then you'll return it, right? That's good. As I held out my hand to Alex, he reluctantly handed over the car keys. After confirming this, Luke calmly spoke up. Dad, why did you abandon us for this woman? Alex, never expecting such words from his own son, was visibly shaken and scratched his head as if at a loss for words. The mistress, replacing Alex's silence, spoke with an inappropriate smile. It's because I'm more attractive than your mother. He's so smitten with me that he's willing to abandon his family. I wasn't asking you, Dad, you answer. Startled by my son's firm tone, the mistress fell silent, but Alex refused to speak. If you don't tell the truth, I'll have the police catch you. Please? No, I'll talk. Maya, the mistress, had joined his company as a new employee 3 months ago. The two felt an attraction and became intimately involved after newcomers' welcome party. Shortly after, Maya became pregnant, leading Alex to decide on a new life with her, leaving us behind. Why did you take the RV? I quit my job and was planning to sell it for money. But it seems like you've been driving it around a lot, haven't you? I was reluctant to sell it immediately, so I took it for a little trip. Wait, how do you know all this? Forgot that we installed a GPS app on your phone after Luke got lost. Thanks to that, I knew exactly where you were. Unbeknownst to Alex, Luke had faked getting lost on our hiking trip just to get a cell phone. His foresight left me in awe. I suspected something was off about Dad. So I planned this. You're a terrifying kid. I'll never become an adult who betrays loved ones so easily like you, Dad. Contrasting the speechless Alex, I felt empowered by my son's maturity beyond his 10 years. I couldn't afford to lose either. Return the $30,000 you took from my account. Now, that's our joint property, isn't it? That money was from my savings before we got married. There's hardly any joint property because of your unstable job history. Learning that the $30,000 was already spent on their lavish lifestyle, I was dumbfounded. I felt relieved to be divorcing him. Well, now you're not just a car thief, but a money thief too. That's going to make your crime much worse. What? You told the police to leave, right? I only said we would talk. I never planned to withdraw the report. I'll add the theft of my money to it too. I can call them back with just a button press. Shall I do it? As we spoke, Maya, the mistress, tried to sneak out of the RV. She let out a loud scream as she saw her furious parents standing outside the RV door, ready to explode. Her parents gave her a severe scolding as she backed away. Why are you so angry? But why are Mom and Dad here? I called your aunt's parents. How did you do that? While I was hospitalized. Luke visited Alex's company, tearfully saying, Dad left home with a woman we don't know. Mom has collapsed. Moved by his seemingly weak and sad demeanor, Alex's colleagues suspected Maya, who had resigned with Alex, and gave Luke her parents' address. Alex and Maya were not shy about displaying their affection at work, often seen cuddling like a couple, even at a welcoming party for new employees, as captured in photographs. I heard Auntie still lived with her parents, so I took the pictures there, and her parents came out. That's when I told them everything. Then I called Maya's parents and asked them to wait nearby. What the? That's our line. Your belly is quite noticeable, Maya. When is the baby due? In 3 months. Wait, that doesn't add up. Didn't you two meet just 3 months ago? Then it's impossible for the baby to be due already. Unaware of such a fact, Alex stared at Maya, eyes wide. What do you mean? Don't you get it? It takes about 9 months from conception to birth. So, that baby isn't yours, silly? What? Maya, you tricked me? Almost got away with it. Your inability to see through lies makes you the fool. How dare you? You've ruined my life. Alex and Maya started a heated argument, which was ignored as the police were called again. As night fell, the red lights of the police vehicles brightly illuminated the area. It's my fault. I won't cheat again and will work hard. Please spare me from the police. A lazy person like you can't change that easily. Luke's right. I can't trust you. Reflect on your actions with the police. If I'm charged, I can't repay the money. Is that okay? First, make amends, then slowly repay. Don't worry. I've already found a place for you to work. Pay back the alimony for Luke and the $30,000 you stole from me. I then address Maya. You act like it's none of your business, but you're complicit in Alex's death. Upon hearing that she'd have to pay if Alex couldn't, Maya began to tremble. She sought help from her parents, who promptly disowned her. We disown a daughter who brings trouble to others. Thus, Alex and Maya were taken away in the police vehicle, thanks to my clever son. Although they weren't detained long, awaiting them was a substantial payment to me. I, through a lawyer, demanded $20,000 each in damages from them, plus the $30,000 withdrawn from my account. Additionally, I made Alex promise to pay $500 monthly in child support. I referred him to a subcontractor factory of my company, where he works to repay his debt through salary deductions. We sold the camper van, freeing us from the loan. My health has rapidly improved, and I'm now energetically back at work. Luke helps with chores and errands happily. I'm determined to support him as he pursues his chosen path.
Nancy, I'm truly sorry for all the trouble I've caused you, she said with a sad face, as I pushed her wheelchair during a stroll. I don't particularly enjoy caregiving, but I can't just leave my mother-in-law alone in the house after my father-in-law passed away so early. My name is Nancy, a 45-year-old housewife with a part-time job. I've been married to my husband Mike for over 20 years. We're a family of 4. Our eldest son is in college, and our younger son is in high school. But now, it's become a family of 5. Half a year ago, my mother-in-law fractured her leg, which healed poorly, and she was certified as recurring nursing care then. Since we couldn't leave her to live alone, she moved in with us. 5 years ago, we built our house with barrier-free design, keeping our old age in mind. Initially, the kids were reluctant, but after living together, they've grown fond of their grandmother. They don't spend much time at home anyway. So far, the only issue was that my mother-in-law mended my eldest son's ripped jeans without asking. But then, a sudden incident occurred. One late night, my husband came home drunk and confronted me. "Hey, where are my clothes? They're not folded," he barked. I realized I had forgotten to fold his laundry because I had been accompanying my mill to the hospital. "Sorry, I was at the hospital with your mom and forgot," I explained. Suddenly, he erupted in anger. "You're a housewife, right? Can't you do at least that much? Who do you think is making your life like this?" he yelled. "Don't put it that way. You never once accompanied your mom to the hospital. Whose parent is she anyway?" I retorted. "Ha! You came into my family. That's the eldest daughter-in-law's job," he argued. I was furious too, but arguing further seemed meaningless. I threw his clothes at him and left the room. The next morning, as I prepared breakfast as usual, he woke up, dressed without a word, and left. "Wait," I called, but it was too late. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the house. Returning to the living room, my mill looked at me with worry. "Good morning. Sorry, there was some trouble last night," I trailed off. She mentioned hearing our voices. That boy, why did he turn out like this? She wondered. Indeed, my husband was more relaxed when we got married, and he hardly ever got angry. He never used to get drunk or speak to me like that. As I remember, he changed when our kids were in elementary and middle school. His colleagues were getting promotions, but he was left behind. The more he struggled, the worse things got. We've been living off his salary, and our kids have grown up. But lately, he's rarely at home on weekdays, and spends weekends either sleeping or out. He used to help with housework and childcare. I suggested he change jobs once, but he snapped at me for the first time then. Since then, our relationship has deteriorated. We're not exactly a zombie marriage, but we no longer go out or do anything together. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel lonely, but now my mill is my companion, and I'm busy with hospital visits. I hardly think about my husband. In a way, living with my mill turned out to be good. That day, my husband didn't come home. He's returned late before, but it was the first time he didn't return at all. I tried contacting him, but he just asked to be left alone. My mill sighed. That foolish son of mine. What's wrong with him? Will he come back soon? I wonder. I mused, deciding to follow his request. I won't prepare his meals anymore. As the weekend arrived, my mill and I were watching TV in the living room when we heard the front door opening. We exchanged glances and looked towards the entrance. There stood my husband, looking displeased. You're finally back. Apologize to Nancy, my mill instructed. Without a word, he placed something on the table. Sign this, he said. It was a divorce application. What? I exclaimed in shock. I will not come back. I'm going to her place. What? I was so taken aback. I repeated the same incredulous reaction. He must think I'd never go through with a divorce. Looking down on me, I remembered a time he jokingly said I'd be in trouble if we divorced, since I only work part-time. My mill began to fret. Are you saying you're divorcing and leaving? What about your mother? Mike sneered. Caring for the elderly is the duty of the eldest son's wife. Wait, so Mill stays here, even if we divorce? That's right. You're the eldest son's wife, so it's your responsibility. I'll leave the house to you. His condescending tone was infuriating. Mike, what are you saying? If you divorce Nancy, she won't be your wife, so why would she live with me? My mill was angry too, but my husband started spouting nonsensical logic. You got married to the eldest son, me. It's a wife's duty to care for the parents. You can't just abandon that duty because of divorce. What he said made no sense to anyone else, and all I could do was sigh. My mill shared my sentiment. Sighing and looking at me, we exchanged a nod, and then, to everyone's surprise, she stood up from her wheelchair. All right, let's get started. My husband was speechless, his eyes wide with shock. I called our sons, who are sports-oriented. They rushed into the living room. Grandma, I knew today was the day. My eldest son chuckled, and my mill smirked. Finding the situation increasingly absurd, I laughed and said, let's do this. The boys scattered throughout the living room and bedroom, starting to move out my husband's belongings. My mill, who defied belief by walking normally, helped carry out smaller items. I started filling out the divorce papers. My husband's belongings were neatly lined up in the hallway. With the paperwork complete, I turned to my husband, who looked bewildered. We're strangers now. Ignoring his confused look, I continued, I'll send your stuff to Angela's place, so write down her address. I bet life with Angela, 10 years my junior, must have been fun. I wish you both all the best. At the mention of her name, he looked at me in shock. Angela from your office? Right, having an affair within the same department. You always lived in such a small world. I sneered back. You said you were going to her place. Right, go ahead. But just so you know, our life won't change without you. Realizing I knew about his affair, his demeanor changed completely, and he became frantic. Wait, hold on. It's not like that. What's not like that? You're divorcing me to be with your mistress. right? Or is there another one? No, it's not that. Wanting a divorce, but changing your tune all of a sudden. Why? Did you bring the divorce papers just to threaten me, assuming I'd never go through with it? Seeing his agitation, it seemed I hit the nail on the head. What are you going to do without me? He was, rather considerately, worried about our future. Don't worry. We'll manage financially. As he stammered in confusion, my eldest son lost patience. Where do we send this stuff? Write down the address here. Reluctantly, my husband wrote down the mistress's address. After watching him, the boys thanked him for raising them, smiling as they said it. When they looked up, my husband had a complicated expression, but they assured him out of the house. Through the window, I could see him walking away, dejected. That sight made me laugh again. Despite he wanted the divorce, looking down his nose on me, he looked so pitiful. Good work, Nancy, my Mill said, patting my back. Did you see his face when Grandma stood up? My younger son asked mischievously. And we all laughed together. In reality, my Mill's rehabilitation was going well, and she was almost fully recovered. At the last hospital visit, her doctor said she could gradually start living without the wheelchair. She was sitting in it earlier just because it was a comfortable height for watching TV. We had planned to buy a chair for my Mill, but until then, she found the wheelchair more comfortable to use. We had anticipated my husband's actions and agreed beforehand that if he talked about divorce or leaving, we would pack his belongings and kick him out together. My sons used to like their father, but he changed and barely responded to them or listened to their concerns. They appreciated his financial support, but didn't want to rely on him anymore, earning their own allowances through part-time jobs. The rift between my husband and me deepened over the years, reaching a point of no return. My Mill always felt guilty for needing my care, but since I cut back on my part-time work, I considered it fair compensation. She had sold her large, empty house, which brought in a significant sum of money. She assured me that if we divorced, we could live off that money. My husband thought his sudden divorce declaration would throw us into chaos, but in the end, he was the one who got played. Afterwards, I filed for property division and alimony, and the homeownership was transferred to me. I had been gathering evidence of his infidelity for years and was ready to confront him with it, but he admitted to it immediately, sparing us a lengthy dispute. I also claimed alimony from his mistress, which she paid in full. Apparently, she was single and about to marry into a wealthy family, but the engagement was called off when this affair came to light. Though I was just wondering why she had an affair with my husband, he was still handsome for his age, which might have attracted her, despite her affluent fiancé being less attractive, as I heard through the grapevine. With the alimony from both, I had no worries about our living expenses for a while. 3 months after the divorce, my ex-husband showed up at our house. "What do you want now?" I asked through the intercom, only to find out it was a plea for reconciliation. My Mill, now able to walk normally, headed to the door, surprising my ex-husband. "Why are you here, Mom?" "Right now. Nancy is my business partner. This place is our workplace." Business partner. He was full of surprises, but my Mill didn't elaborate. "Don't call me Mom anymore. It was Nancy who suggested we live together and took care of me. Mike, you did nothing. So please, don't call yourself my son." I went to the door, ready to say my piece for the last time. "I appreciate you providing financially, but you never did housework, barely came home, and then cheated. Why would I want to start over with someone like that? We're strangers now. If you want to see the boys, contact them directly, though I doubt they'll want to see you." My ex-husband, speechless and looking sad, just stood there, but it was a natural consequence of his actions. "We're happy as a family now, so please don't interfere anymore. Goodbye." I closed the door, and he walked away dejectedly. Since becoming wheelchair-bound, my Mill hadn't gone out much and took up sewing, her specialty. She made high-quality aprons and hats for me. I shared them online and received a great response. I started selling her creations, learning along the way. My mill now lives in a nearby apartment but uses a room in our house as her workshop. She's here most of the week for work and meetings, so it feels natural. My ex-husband is unaware, but we're making a decent income now. My mill is thriving and happy. If you hadn't taught me, I would have never known I could sell my creations like this. I'm already receiving feedback on my new pieces. She beams. Hearing her joy makes me happy too. Technically, we're no longer in-laws, but I still call her Mill, and we get along great. Grandma's here today, right? I bought her favorite sweets. My eldest son says, coming home with a bag of treats. Our home is filled with more smiles than ever. The boys will eventually leave the nest, but I know my Mill and I will continue our good relationship. I need $10,000. Suddenly, my 6-year-old grandson, whom I hadn't seen for half a year, appeared with this startling request. I couldn't believe my ears. Moreover, he looked terribly thin and ragged. I don't want to sleep in the park anymore. I want to buy a house. That was all he said when I asked him why. So many thoughts raced through my mind. I tried to bring him inside to talk, but he stood still, refusing to move. What followed was a whirlwind of events I could never have imagined. I'm Kelly, 55, working actively as a manager in a food company. After losing my husband early, I raised my daughter Zoe single-handedly, working from dawn till dusk. We hardly had time for conversations, so Zoe and I kept a shared diary for updates, supporting each other like friends as much as mother and daughter. 7 years ago, Zoe got married. I happily gave them a generous wedding gift. Initially, I thought it might be overbearing, but my son-in-law, Theo, appreciated it, so I felt relieved. After Zoe moved out, I felt lonely, but they lived nearby, so I could see them anytime. We visited each other's homes frequently, and my grandson Tyler's photos sent by Zoe were my solace. When Tyler learned to walk, he said proudly during one of his visits, "We took the train here. I know how to get to Grandma's house now." How amazing, Tyler. You're welcome anytime. His proud little face warmed my heart. Theo said, "They both love you, so feel free to visit anytime," which put me at ease. However, about a year ago, Zoe's tone became heavy whenever I asked about weekend plans. Concerned, I asked her why. "Just, you know." She was vague and didn't give a clear answer. At the time, I didn't press further, which I later deeply regretted. Work got busier, and I hadn't seen Zoe and Tyler for a while. One day, thinking of visiting them, I called Zoe's cell phone. Surprisingly, Theo answered. "I'll be straightforward. Please don't come over anymore. Zoe is bothered by you." He claimed Zoe found it tedious to entertain me, and that it's only natural for him to prioritize his family on weekends. His unexpected words hit me like a hammer. I'm sorry, I never realized. All I could muster was a faint apology, my mind in turmoil. "Don't tell Zoe I said this. She didn't want to upset you. So, keep it between us, okay?" With that, Theo abruptly ended the call. "Zoe, what's going on?" Although what Theo said might have some truth, I couldn't believe Zoe would reject me. We always talked about everything. So I tried calling her cell phone again. "Hello, Zoe. Oh, Theo again. Please stop calling. It's really bothersome." Even my messages online went unread. Before I knew it, 6 months had passed since I last saw Zoe and Tyler. One afternoon, while drinking coffee alone at home, the doorbell rang. "Tyler, what's happened to you?" Realizing it was my grandson, I hurried to open the door. Tyler's face briefly twisted, but then he looked at me with a serious expression. "I need $10,000. Shocked at my grandson's request for such a large sum, especially considering his emaciated and tattered appearance, I was flooded with thoughts. "Come inside, and I'll make you some warm food right now." I tried to lead him inside, but Tyler refused. "I don't want to sleep in the park anymore. I want to buy a house. If I don't, Mom will be in trouble." "What do you mean?" It seemed my grandson, Tyler, and my daughter Zoe had been sleeping rough for several days. Mom stopped moving. Tyler had come to seek help. Please, take me to Zoe's place. In a panic, I took a taxi with Tyler to a park near my daughter's house. There, in a makeshift home of cardboard, hidden in a secluded area of the park, lay my daughter, unresponsive. Zoe, please, open your eyes. Despite my calls, she didn't stir, and I trembled as I called for an ambulance. Rushed to the emergency room. Zoe lay unconscious with a high fever. Tyler, thin and frail, was also examined, but fortunately, rest at home was all he needed. Later, the hospital staff informed me that Zoe was on 4 fluids, and all we could do was wait and observe. If anything changed, they would contact me. Desperate to stay with my daughter, I was reluctantly sent home. Grandma, I'm hungry. Tyler finally relaxed, slumping at the entrance of my home. I bathed him in a warm tub and prepared his favorite salmon and scrambled eggs. It's delicious. His voracious eating deepened my worry. Suddenly, his chopsticks stopped, and tears started flowing. What's wrong? Grandma will listen to everything. I wrapped my arm around his shoulder, trying to comfort him. We got kicked out of our house, and I can't go to kindergarten anymore because it costs money. Tyler revealed that one day, Theo's mother and sister moved in and began treating Zoe like a servant. Theo ignored it, even joining in the mistreatment. Any noise from Zoe or Tyler was met with anger, sometimes leading to things being thrown at them. Eventually, they were thrown out. At first, we had a little money for snack bread, but Mom said she wasn't hungry and gave it all to me. Then she got weaker. Why didn't you come to my house sooner? Mom said it would bring trouble to you. But when she collapsed, I hurried here. Gathering the last of his coins, Tyler relied on his memory of the route to my house to seek help. I should have noticed something was wrong with my daughter. If only I had. The thought of their hardships under the cold sky filled me with indescribable pain. But regret wouldn't turn back time. Instead, I decided to talk to Theo. Holding Tyler's hand, I let him sleep in my bed. And once he was asleep, I tried calling Theo, to no avail. As I went to sort through Zoe's laundry from the hospital, I found something startling. What's this? Discovering a hidden truth, I vowed to seek revenge on Theo and his family. The next day, I set out to corner them, sure of something they didn't know. With everything ready, I left Tyler at home and headed to Theo's house, accompanied by someone. Who's there? Disturbing us in broad daylight. Theo's sister answered the door as if it were her own home, but I barged in without hesitation. What are you doing here? The house was a mess, a far cry from when Zoe kept it spotless. Theo, who are these rude people? Not only his sister but also his mother confronted me as if they owned the place. Who, you ask? I'm Zoe's mother. We've met before, haven't we? But who's being rude here, I wonder? Ignoring my sarcasm, Theo's mother and sister exchanged glances. Unperturbed, fuming, I approached Theo. Why did you kick Zoe and Tyler out of this house? And why are these people living here like they own it? I'm the head of the family, so if I say it's fine, then it's fine. Theo responded without changing his expression to my question. My mother and I moved in because I divorced and had no place to live. Her apartment lease was up, so we decided to live together, said Theo's sister, with their mother nodding in agreement. That's no reason to kick out your own wife and child. They're just outsiders, right? It's uncomfortable having them around, Theo's mother added, saying it was their fault for being useless servants. I was boiling with anger at their selfishness. What kind of head are you, not caring for your own wife and child? Zoe is in critical condition, unconscious. Oh, that's her own doing, Theo's sister and mother whispered, smirking at each other. You'll only laugh for so long. And Theo, you were having an affair. There was a brief pause, but he remained smug. An affair. Got any proof? Make false accusations, and I'll sue you for defamation. How about this for proof? I showed him several photos of him with his mistress. Where did you get those? I took out the shared diary Zoe and I used to communicate. After she stopped writing to me, she filled the remaining pages. Initially, it was filled with joy about her marriage and child, but it soon turned to her pain over Theo's affair. She took the diary with her when they were kicked out, probably too upset to leave it behind. The diary mentioned no solid proof, so I hired a detective agency to investigate Theo. The man accompanying me, quietly saying, "Affairs are not commendable," adjusted his glasses. "You also lied about me embezzling company funds to control Zoe, threatening her with my social ruin." Apparently, Zoe believed that Theo had photographed me receiving money in a hotel lobby, claiming it was embezzlement. The diary also revealed Zoe's phone was taken, leaving her unable to call for help. "I've never embezzled, and I can prove my innocence easily. That must have been when I received legitimate cash sales, all of which can be proven." As I firmly stated this, Theo gritted his teeth in frustration. Then the man accompanying me glared at Theo. "This constitutes serious defamation. Who are you, acting so high and mighty?" The man smiled and handed Theo his business card from a major law firm. Theo pointed at the man beside me. "A lawyer. It's only logical not to come alone against unreasonable people like you. You never know what you might do," I said coldly. Theo glared back but had nothing to say. The lawyer then informed us that Zoe had already expressed her intent to divorce in her diary, and the matter was bound to be resolved sooner or later. He promptly produced the divorce papers Zoe had already signed. "Then don't ever set foot in this house again. Neither you nor her." Theo yelped like a defeated dog. Beside him, his sister and mother were also making a fuss, urging me to leave. I took a deep breath and calmly pulled out a document. "Theo, you seem to be mistaken. This house is under Zoe's name, not yours." "What do you mean? I never heard about this." He started to panic as I showed him the property deed. "Originally, I bought this house as a wedding gift for them. You left everything to Zoe, so you never even realized whose name it was under. Talk about getting what you deserve. No way." Theo, his sister, and mother all went pale, looking at Zoe's name on the deed, heads in their hands. "Now where will we go if we're kicked out?" The mother started blaming Theo, demanding he rent a house with his savings. "That's impossible. I don't have any savings. You guys handle it. I can't. I spent all my money on alimony after my divorce." Turns out, his sister was divorced too because of her own affair, and none of them had any savings left after their extravagant lifestyle. "Please, let's forget the divorce. Please, I'll get along with Zoe." I watched the three of them crying pathetically with a calm demeanor. "I'll never forgive you for what you've done. I'll also be claiming for defamation and compensation for Zoe's suffering." The lawyer beside me nodded deeply in agreement. The three of them collapsed to their knees as we watched. "Be gone within 3 days. Oh, and you might be taken away by the police before that." Their wailing followed me as I left Zoe's house with dignity. Soon after, I filed a police report, and they were taken in for questioning, spending about 3 days in custody. During that time, I moved all their belongings to a storage unit and changed the house locks, ensuring they could never return. Eventually, Theo lost his job due to this incident and was abandoned by his mistress. The three of them ended up working tirelessly, living as lodgers. Through our lawyer, we claimed $5,000 for defamation and $20,000 for Zoe's suffering from Theo and his family, including his mistress. Soon after, I received news that Zoe had awakened from her coma and was discharged last month. Now Zoe, Tyler, and I live together, enjoying our days filled with laughter.
"Please, help me!" In desperation, I pleaded for help, but my husband threw callous words back at me. "What? I'm at a party right now. It's impossible. If you have a problem with that, just leave." The next time I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Despite collapsing with pneumonia, my husband didn't even come to visit. I can't stand such a heartless man anymore. I'm seriously going to leave him. I'm Mary. 3 years ago, Through my friend Kate's introduction, I met and married Tom. Tom worked at the same company as Kate's husband, Harry. Everything in life, work, home, friendships, was going smoothly. But lately, I've been worried about changes in Tom. He stopped helping with housework and started making demeaning comments. Tom used to help with chores without being asked. When I hung laundry, he'd vacuum. When I cooked, he'd take care of the laundry. We lived a natural life, each doing what we could. But lately, Tom won't lift a finger. Whatever I ask, he just says can't do and dismisses it. As days passed, his attitude worsened, and his refusals grew harsher.
Why should I do it? It's your job.
He'd snap, increasingly irritable. Is work stressing him out? Shocked by his transformation, I tried not to provoke him and took on all the housework myself. I believed that once he had some free time, he'd return to his old self. Hoping for this, I balanced work and home diligently. One night, returning home late from overtime, I found Tom sprawled on the sofa, watching TV, with his clothes strewn about. "Sorry I'm late," I hurriedly said. "You haven't eaten yet, right? I'll make it quickly. Please put your socks in the laundry. Your jacket will wrinkle if left like that." I chose my words carefully, but they seemed to upset him. Turning his head towards me, he shot a sharp look.
What? You haven't eaten yet, right? Of course I haven't. You're late, and I'm here starving. Just make it all ready. You deal with the socks and jacket.
He yelled. Why? What's happening? I was only scared of Tom's loud voice now. His drastic change was too much for my heart to handle. Being shouted at felt like a threat, making me want to cry. But I hadn't given up hope yet. If his work eased up, he'd return to his old self. I kept telling myself this, enduring. But this lifestyle couldn't last. The mental strain, coupled with the challenge of juggling work and home, proved too much. I fell ill, bedridden. Lying there, my back felt unbearably cold. My head spun, it seemed like a serious cold. "Sorry, I feel really sick. I've got chills and will take the day off from work. There's frozen food and bread at home. Could you manage the rest?" With great effort, I managed to sit up and tell him that. But Tom wouldn't have it.
What? Just because you feel a bit under the weather, you're trying to skip out on housework? Oh, don't tell me you're lying about being sick just to avoid chores? Whether you go to work or not doesn't matter to me, but make sure my breakfast and lunch are ready.
Tom forcibly dragged me out of bed. My vision blurred, and I felt unsteady on my feet due to the fever. Despite this, he showed no concern and sat on the sofa watching the morning news.
Hurry up. If I'm late for work, you'll have to answer for it.
He commanded, eyes still fixed on the TV. Somehow, I managed to prepare breakfast and his lunch and immediately returned to bed.
Ugh. Making such a big deal over nothing.
I heard him scoff from behind. Holding back my tears, I lay down in bed. I soon fell asleep, tears streaming down my face. I woke up around noon, drank some water, and fell asleep again. When I woke up next, the room was dimly lit, and it was past 6 p.m. My breathing was labored, and I felt worse than in the afternoon. The fever was high, the chills severe, and the cough persistent. Unable to get up for water, let alone make it to the kitchen, I felt utterly helpless. I need to check my temperature. The thermometer showed over 104 degrees Fahrenheit. I had never experienced such a high fever before. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I called my husband.
Tom, I can't move. My fever is too high. Please, help me.
I said desperately. Even speaking exhausted me greatly. But his response left me with no choice but to despair.
What? I'm at a party, can't help. If you have a problem, just leave.
A party? At a time like this?
Your friend Kate's there, right? Her husband, Harry, has never helped her out since they got married. Yet, Kate works just like you and manages all the housework. You're just too lazy. Deal with a cold yourself. See ya.
I was dumbfounded as the call abruptly ended. It seems Tom is always well treated by Harry at work. That's why he's so deferential to Harry. A husband who prioritizes a party over his sick wife. Not only unconcerned but also accusing me of being too lazy.
Help me.
In desperation, I called Kate. Hello? Long time no see. What's up? Hearing Kate's voice, I couldn't hold back my tears. Crying, I explained my situation. Then Kate said, I'm coming over right now. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Just hold on a little longer and I'll get help. Encouraging myself, I mustered all my strength to open the front door. That's when I blacked out. Where am I? I saw a white ceiling. As my consciousness slowly cleared, I remembered. I was opening the door for Kate and then...
Mary! Are you okay?
Noticing I was awake, Kate leaned in close to my face. You're in the hospital, she said. Hospital. Mary, you collapsed right after opening the door, then you lost consciousness. I called an ambulance, and you were brought here. I was really worried. So, I had passed out. Sorry, and thank you. I said weakly. Kate continued, the doctor says it's not just a cold, but pneumonia. The symptoms are severe, so you'll have to stay in the hospital for a while. You should let Tom know, okay? Even though she said that, I was scared to contact Tom. What if he threw more harsh words at me? As I looked down, Kate gave me a concerned smile. What's wrong? Weren't you and Tom so close? Did you have a fight? Kate, how do you and Harry divide the housework? Housework division? Tom's words were bothering me, so I asked Kate. Tom had said Harry never helped her with housework, but I couldn't believe it. Because when I visited their house, I saw Harry cooking for Kate. Of course, I never heard Kate complain about Harry. If a husband doesn't help with chores, there should be some complaints from the wife. As I was thinking about this, Kate said, we don't really divide chores. Either one of us just does it. Sure, some couples do divide chores, but this way works better for us. But why do you ask? I shared with Kate what Tom had said. About how his attitude had changed recently, and how he stopped doing any housework at all. I see. After nodding, Kate said, okay, I'll talk to Harry about it. For now, just rest, Mary. It's late, so I'll go home. I'll visit again tomorrow. It seemed Kate stayed by my side even after visiting hours had passed. Her kindness really touched me. I informed Tom that I was hospitalized with pneumonia and then fell asleep. In the early morning, I woke up to a message from Tom.
Pneumonia? What's that? What am I supposed to do now? What about meals and baths while you're hospitalized? What should I do? Stop messing around with this hospital stuff and come back home. If you don't come back soon, it's divorce.
Reading that, I trembled in shock. I couldn't believe he would respond like this. My husband was such a person. I had endured, hoping he would return to his old self. But not anymore. I decided to leave Tom and that house. I ended up staying in the hospital for nearly a week. Tom never visited. Kate, on the other hand, came almost every day. Sometimes bringing Harry with her. Tearfully, I told them, I can't trust Tom anymore. I'm thinking of getting a divorce. The two of them didn't try to stop me. Harry seemed guilty, thinking he somehow contributed to Tom's misunderstanding. I'll talk to Tom. He offered several times. But I respectfully declined. It wasn't about Harry. Tom himself had changed. A husband who chose a drinking party over his desperately seeking help wife. Struggling with pneumonia, my husband demanded I return home quickly. I couldn't see a future with him anymore. My resolve for divorce only grew stronger. Days later, when I returned home after being discharged, the house was in a terrible state. Overflowing with garbage and laundry, it even smelled bad. The sink still held the cup I used before hospitalization, showing Tom hadn't done any dishes. In just 1 week, how could it get this bad? Fighting nausea, I quickly prepared to leave. I cleaned only the dining table and left the signed divorce papers there before departing. I headed straight to my parents' house. Having informed them earlier, they warmly welcomed me, saying, "You've had a tough time." That night, Tom inevitably called.
What's this? Stop playing around. Where are you? Come back now, he yelled.
I immediately replied with no.
What? What did you just say? He sounded annoyed.
But I wasn't going to back down. I said no. I'm never coming back to that house. Tom raised his voice, accusing me.
Do you know how hard this is for me? Did you see the state of the house? It's like that because you didn't clean. Clean everything, not just the table. I don't have clothes for work because you didn't do laundry.
Even after leaving the divorce papers, he showed no remorse, blaming the house's state on me.
It's not my problem. That happened because you didn't clean or do laundry. I told you I was hospitalized. You could have taken care of yourself.
He retorted as if it was obvious.
Housework is a woman's job. Men don't need to help. That's what Harry said.
His laugh infuriated me.
Enough about Harry. You are Tom. Whatever Harry says doesn't matter. And Harry would never say that. He and Kate support each other in their household.
Whether shocked by the truth about Harry or my raised voice, Tom seemed utterly surprised. No way. He stammered.
Yes, it's true. So, that's it. Make sure you file the divorce papers.
I hung up unilaterally. The next day, Tom called again. Reluctantly answering the call, this time he apologized with incredible urgency.
I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, don't divorce me.
His attitude was shockingly different. When I didn't respond, Tom continued. I talked to Harry. He said, housework is for both spouses. I never thought of it as helping, so I said I never helped. But you made Mary do everything. That's the worst. That's what he told me. So, Harry scolded him, and he came to apologize. I understood Tom had misinterpreted Harry's words for his convenience. And? I replied coldly. To this, he responded in a pleading tone.
So, I was wrong. I'll do housework from now on. I took it for granted that you'd do it. Please, don't divorce me.
No matter what you say, my feelings won't change.
Please, otherwise, I'll remain despised by Harry. We work at the same company, and I want to get along with him. I always got along well at work, but recently he's been cold. It must be because of how I treated you.
So, what are you saying?
If you don't divorce me and I start doing housework, Harry will probably treat me like before. Help with housework. So you still see it as something to help with, Tom?
When I pointed this out, Tom panicked.
No, not help, I'll do it. Please come back.
Oh my goodness, this man was my husband. I was beyond anger, just astonished at his audacity. With an exaggerated sigh, I said,
even when faced with divorce, you only think about yourself. I come second. You didn't even worry when I was sick. I can't live with someone like that anymore. I can't even think of us as a couple. The divorce will definitely happen. Whether you reconcile with Harry or not, it's irrelevant to me.
Leaving it at that, I hung up the phone without another word. He kept calling persistently afterwards, but his conversations revolved only around self-preservation. There was no sign of progress in the divorce discussions. A month later, fed up, I went to Tom's place with Kate and Harry. Maybe because Harry was present, Tom behaved and quickly filled out the divorce papers. We went straight to the office to file them, and the divorce was finalized at last. Even after the divorce, he kept calling to whine. Well, I ignored them all. Everyone at work shuns me. I want to eat a proper meal. My house has turned into a garbage dump. His complaints were none of my concern. What about sorting it out yourself? I thought. Later, I heard Tom quit his job, probably shocked by being shunned by Harry. There had been complaints in the office about his odor and untidiness, and no one tried to stop him from resigning. I still maintain a good relationship with Kate and Harry. Harry has apologized to me many times, but it was Tom who failed to value his family. And it was my fault too for not seeing his true nature. I can't think of remarrying for a while, but I'm improving my domestic skills for when I meet the right person. Next time, I hope for a relationship where we can grow together. With these thoughts, I continue to attend my cooking classes today.
Mia, it's great that your sister Sarah had a safe delivery. Babies really are adorable. Sarah has totally got that mom look now. I wonder what it feels like to become a parent. To celebrate my sister's childbirth, my husband Mike and our in-laws gathered. At the gathering, Mike muttered while looking at my sister's baby. What does it feel like to become a parent? His words, spoken with a smile, brought smiles to my sister and in-laws too. But seeing this, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Mike, what are you saying? Stop making me laugh. My loud laughter froze the atmosphere instantly. What's the matter, Mia? Why are you laughing out loud all of a sudden? That's a bit strange, isn't it? Strange? The strange one is you. Stop making me laugh anymore. My unusual behavior was quickly noticed by my sister and in-laws. And the in-laws, being angry at my attitude as a daughter-in-law, said, Mia, this kind of attitude, mocking others at such a joyous occasion, we can't overlook it. Mike just wants a child with Mia, right? Is it so ridiculous to want to become a parent? The in-laws knew that we, as a couple, desired children. So, I understood why they were worried and angry at me. But they only knew that much. I knew everything. Enough to burst into laughter at Mike's words. I was about to prove it. And clarify who really was being ridiculous. What Mike is saying is absurd. Because he knows. He knows? What do you mean, Mia? The feeling of becoming a parent, Dad. Mike is already a parent. My statement brought doubt to my in-laws. It was natural since we didn't have children. In front of them, I asked my husband again. Mike, why did you say that? What does it feel like to become a parent? Why? It's natural for someone who's about to become a parent, isn't it? Is there something wrong? I want to know what it feels like to be a parent soon. That's why. Why don't you know? Being the father of Sarah's baby. Upon my words, my husband, sister, and in-laws were stunned in surprise. Thinking it was a misunderstanding, my father-in-law asked with a smile. What are you talking about, Mia? Mike is your husband, right? It's impossible he has a child with Sarah. That's right, as Dad says. It's not something to joke about. Before my mother-in-law could finish, I threw a bundle of photos in front of everyone. The photos fluttered to the floor, scattering about. Everyone who saw this gasped in unison, what? It's not a joke. Mike and Sarah are having an affair. The photos showed my husband and sister dining and walking through hotel districts, looking like a couple. Mia, what is this? How did you get these? Mia, you were secretly taking these? My husband and sister turned pale in an instant. But my in-laws couldn't believe it. Mike, explain this. You're not having an affair with your wife's sister, right? That's impossible, right? And to even have a child? Unthinkable, right? Yeah, of course. I would never do such a thing. I love only Mia. I'm just close to Sarah as a sister. It's all Mia's misunderstanding. Yes, it's normal for family to dine out together. It was wrong for just the two of us to go, but we only walked in the hotel district and didn't enter any. My husband and sister nodded in agreement with each other. The in-laws seemed incredulous, or perhaps they didn't want to believe, stumbling over their words. Such excuses were futile. It was 120% certain that my husband and sister were headed for disaster. I felt like laughing again at the thought, but I managed to suppress it. I needed to let my in-laws know everything. With that in mind, I took out my smartphone and pressed the play button. Why haven't you gotten pregnant yet? It's natural for women to get pregnant, so why can't you? Mia, you're finished as a woman. It's common sense for a housewife to do household chores and child rearing, right? When are you going to do that? I would help with it if you would just hurry up. The numerous unkind words of my husband played out. Simultaneously, there were sounds of something being hit and things breaking. It was the sound suggesting that my husband was not only verbally abusive but also physically violent. I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you sooner. I've been constantly harassed by your son, even threatened with a completed divorce paper. He told me not to tell you guys. What? Mike, it's not true, right? What is this? How can this be happening? Hearing the sounds from the phone, my in-laws turned pale and asked my husband for an explanation. Mike's face went as pale as theirs. No, this is different. It's not like that. I didn't do this. I never did. Then why does Mia have a recording of your voice? Are you saying she faked it? Answer that. Yeah, it's fake, a fake. In this day and age, it's easy to fake something like this. Mia must be jealous because I was getting along with Sarah, and she's trying to frame me as the bad guy. My husband retorted loudly, matching my father-in-law's volume. I had never seen him raise his voice except when harassing me. He was generally a mild-mannered and gentle person. My husband was raising his voice. It seemed he was quite cornered, probably because my revelations were unexpected. In the tense atmosphere, my sister spoke next. That's right. Mia is jealous of us. Besides, she has a dark side. Even though she congratulated me on my pregnancy, at the celebration, she's ruining everything by bringing up lies. Dark, huh? That sounds more like you, doesn't it? You think I don't know anything? What are you talking about? What do you want to say? Immediately after that, I pressed another play button on my smartphone. Then, I held it up so that everyone could see. As expected, everyone looked confused. Sarah, you've been sneaking into our new house, haven't you? My cosmetics and cash were disappearing bit by bit, so I installed a surveillance camera. The playback button I pressed showed the surveillance camera footage, where my sister appeared over and over again. She had come during the few hours when I was out shopping. I could imagine my husband contacting her to come over during those short periods. Mia, you went that far? Setting up a surveillance camera in the family? That's too much. Well, isn't having an affair in the family more absurd? Don't you realize yet? You did something wrong. As I glared sharply, my sister looked down with a pained expression. The in-laws, watching this, were in a daze. It was understandable. Their trusted son was having an affair with my sister. And even now, both the son and sister continued to lie. Such hopelessly foolish people. They deserved to be laughed at, it seemed, as the in-laws looked at me with such an expression. My husband remained silent, but my sister was different. Mia, I'm not wrong at all. It's you who's finished as a woman. Sarah, so you're not even trying to hide your true nature anymore. Fine, I'll listen to what you have to say. Go ahead, speak your mind. Mike said it too, a woman who can't have a child is finished. And Mia, do you know what people say about you? Sarah is so cute, but Mia's a failure. Sarah took all the good traits, Mia's a pitiful and miserable woman. I've been embarrassed my whole life to have such a person as my big sister. Unlike you, I was always loved by everyone. My sister said this with a smirk, seemingly enjoying herself. I've known all this for a long time. There were times when I even wondered if my sister and I were really related. She was that beautiful and capable, a girl who could do anything. But I never felt sorry for myself. And I certainly don't, and can't, accept that a woman who can't have children is finished. As I clenched my fist, my husband spoke up. Sarah's right. Mia, it's all your fault. It's your lack of charm as a woman that's the problem. That's why it's understandable that you're cheated on. If you're frustrated. Just as he was about to continue, there was a sharp sound, a snap. Tears were in my mother-in-law's eyes. Mike! You are! In her anger and disappointment, my mother-in-law let out an inarticulate cry. Beside her, my father-in-law was red-faced, grinding his teeth. He glared alternately at my husband and sister, his brow furrowed so deeply it looked like his veins might burst. Don't ever show your face to us again. Mike, do you even understand how we raised you? I will never forgive you. We no longer consider you family, no, not even human. Do you hear? It's you who are finished. The very thought of you disgusts me. Shut up, old man. Who cares about your feelings? As long as Sarah and I are happy, there's no problem. We're disowning you. I feel refreshed. Is that how someone who's about to be a parent talks? My father-in-law looked ready to leap at my husband. I stopped him. Thank you, father, for being angry for me, but it's okay. I'll make sure they get what they deserve. Ahaha. What are you trying to act tough for, Mia? You can only ask for alimony, right? We'll pay you, so just shut up. Sarah, you'll regret it someday. Everyone will turn their back on you, you know? Too bad. I have over 100 friends, and there's no way everyone would turn their back on me. What about you, Mia? You don't have any friends, do you? Sure, I have few friends, but friends aren't about numbers, are they?
Yeah.
Whatever. Stop talking nonsense and just go home. My husband and sister smirked at each other in a nauseating way. My in-laws' anger didn't subside, but I calmed them down and left. As soon as we were outside, my in-laws knelt before me. Mia, we are truly sorry. We don't expect forgiveness, but here we are. We were wrong. We thought we knew our son, but we didn't. We're sorry for making you suffer. Please stand up. I'm sorry too for not consulting you about Mike. And about my sister, even if we're family, there are things we don't understand. I don't hate or resent you. But I won't back down. Just watch. I'll make sure they get what they deserve. Saying this, I gave my in-laws the best smile I could muster. I didn't feel like smiling, but I refused to cry for those two. I'd be the one making them cry. The real show was just beginning. Months later, I was at a wedding venue. I had already divorced my husband and filed for alimony. But as I said before, this wasn't the end. After taking a deep breath, I stepped into the venue. Today's wedding was for Mike and Sarah. I wasn't invited by the two, but I had found out about the wedding date and infiltrated using a certain method. I quickly spoke to the staff at the venue, preparing for the right moment. As the ceremony proceeded smoothly, the host announced, "Now, we will play a video letter from the groom's parents, who couldn't be here today." My ex-husband and sister reacted sharply to these words. Of course. My ex-husband and sister were estranged from my in-laws. They hadn't invited them to the wedding. In fact, they shouldn't even know the wedding date. My ex-husband and sister's expressions, which were indescribable, turned pale in an instant. Right after the video letter played, the hall buzzed, and 3 seconds later, it erupted into chaos. The footage showed my ex-husband and sister in a compromising position, passionately involved with each other. It was a video of them making love. Stop it! Hurry up! Stop it! No! No. With cries of anguish, people started leaving their seats. The staff hurriedly stopped the video, and the ceremony was temporarily halted. Amidst the lingering commotion, I approached my ex-husband and sister. Hello, you two. Quite a lively wedding, isn't it? I'm envious. Mia, you did this? Before that, Mia, why are you here? We didn't tell you anything. That's because I and my friends investigated. You were bragging about your wedding on social media. And I got into the venue because I'm your sister. I explained the situation to the receptionist, and she let me in quite easily. Don't mess around. You've ruined the wedding. Are you happy now? Happy? Of course not. But it's less fun seeing you two so proudly having a wedding. So, I thought I'd destroy it. That's too much. And you said earlier your friends helped you investigate, but what's in it for them? Don't lie. I wasn't keen on it, but my friends aren't people who act on profit or loss. They were worried about me. They even wanted to storm the wedding, but I stopped them. I've already troubled them enough, so I couldn't ask for more. My ex-husband and sister looked incredulous. I almost burst into laughter at their expressions. I had warned them a day of regret would come. Sarah, friends aren't about numbers. They're the ones who help you when you're in real trouble, without expecting anything in return. Just out of the desire to help. I had such friends. And you? You said you had over 100 friends, right? Don't act so high and mighty. Yes, I have over 100 friends. I invited many today. It's just a little panic, the wedding won't be ruined. We'll resume shortly. Is that so? It seems everyone has left, are you sure? What? Doubting, yet Sarah went to check around the venue. But there was no one left. She hurriedly took her phone to contact them, but it seemed no one replied. Why did everyone leave? I wonder why. Oh, right. I let everyone know about your affair with your sister's husband, with photos included. What? You're lying. Well, even without that, your friends might not have considered you a friend. You only had superficial relationships, right? I didn't need to investigate to know that. As I said, Sarah was abandoned by everyone. She trembled, holding her phone with no replies. My ex-husband then spoke up, seemingly taking Sarah's side. To do this to your own sister. And I'm your ex-husband. Don't you have a heart? How interesting. You two abandoned me, remember? Don't talk about family now. And if anyone lacks a heart, it's Sarah. I thrust an envelope I had in my bag at my ex-husband. He looked inside, his eyes widening. What is this? Who are these guys? Sarah, you've had relationships with many men besides Mike. You said it yourself, didn't you? You've been loved by everyone since your student days. That hasn't changed. A charming girl like you can't be ignored. Sarah, you deceived me? Tell me it's a lie. Mike was in despair, but Sarah couldn't say anything. I added more. Now, here's a question. Whose child did Sarah give birth to? What are you talking about? My ex-husband started to respond but stopped, realizing what I meant. You better get a DNA test soon. You can't marry without knowing who the father is. Isn't it my child, Sarah? Sarah remained silent, the worst answer clear to my ex-husband. It's over, we're finished. What are you saying, Mike? It's just the beginning. From now on, I'll watch you too. I won't let you be happy. Remember, there are things in life you can't undo. I'll make sure you understand that. With that, I left the venue. Later, my ex-husband did a DNA test and confirmed Sarah's baby wasn't his. They ended up blaming each other and separating. My ex-husband lost his job and was in ruins. Sarah was abandoned by another lover and left to raise the baby alone. My sister and I lost our parents when we were young, so Sarah didn't want to make her child parentless. But despite that, she strayed. I'll probably never forgive her. But I hope she changes for her child's sake. A child is innocent, after all. As for me, I started a new job, beginning a new life. Honestly, the events surrounding this incident were a huge shock, and for a while, I thought I might not be able to move forward. However, my parents-in-law and friends supported me, and that's why I am where I am now. I could never have 100 friends like my sister, but even if just one person cares about me, that alone makes me happy. That's why I want to cherish each person's feelings. I don't think this will ever change. Hey, I was thinking of taking Mom on a trip for her birthday. Do you think that's okay? My husband approached me with this idea when I got home from work. He has a good relationship with his parents. My in-laws are friendly and have always been kind to me. However, since I got promoted, I've been busier at work and haven't had much chance to see them. It's fine by me, but are you okay with me not going? Right now, my work is just too hectic and it's difficult to take extended time off. I can't join for a trip. But my husband understands. It's okay. My parents know how busy you are, Emily. And they seem to be on edge a bit when you're around. It might be easier if I go alone. Join us next time when we visit their house, okay? Indeed, staying overnight with my in-laws is a different matter, even if we get along well. I wanted them to enjoy themselves freely, so I prepared a gift for my mother-in-law and asked my husband to give it to her. But this was where everything started to go wrong. My name is Emily, a 32-year-old office worker. I met my husband Tim 3 years ago and got married. We've been thinking about having children, but my work has become more demanding, and we haven't made much progress. Even after marriage, I wanted us to have our own time, and we're fairly content with not interfering too much in each other's lives. On the day my husband left for the trip with his parents, I headed to work earlier. I had just settled into work when I received a call from my husband. He told me he was heading to his parents' house and would leave for the inn the next morning. He had been doing a lot of overtime and working on weekends, so this would be a nice break for him. I told him to enjoy himself. But then, the weather turned ominous in the afternoon. The forecast changed to heavy rain, and we were instructed to leave work early, so I headed home in the evening. It was already starting to rain, and the sky was dark. I only had a small umbrella, but I managed to get home before it started pouring. My in-laws live in the neighboring states. Worried, I called Tim. I'm at my parents' place, but it's not too bad here. Should be fine, he said optimistically. Indeed, it wasn't raining that hard yet. Weather forecasts can be exaggerated, and it might not rain as much as predicted. I was a bit relieved, thinking my elderly in-laws would be okay, since Tim was there. However, as the night progressed, the rain grew heavier. It was stormy outside, and it seemed best to avoid going out. Concerned, I turned on the TV, and it appeared to be raining heavily where my in-laws lived. Oh dear, I thought, watching the live broadcast from their city. That was the city where my in-laws live. I called Tim in a panic, but couldn't get through. I sent an email but got no reply. Worried, I called my mother-in-law, and that's when I learned the shocking truth. After a few rings, she answered. Hello, are you okay? I saw it on TV. Emily, thank you. Things are quite tough here. While we were debating whether to go to the shelter or not, we ended up getting stranded. Apparently, the rainwater had overflowed considerably in front of their house, making it impossible to walk to the shelter. They didn't have a car at the in-laws' house and had taken refuge on the second floor, just in case. What? But Tim drove there, didn't he? When I said this, my mother-in-law sounded puzzled. Tim? Coming here? I didn't receive any message about that. There seemed to be some confusion in my conversation with my mother-in-law. As we talked more, it became clear that she thought Tim was coming home due to concern about the rain. No, it's not that. It's a trip starting tomorrow. He said he's coming over today to leave in the morning, I explained. A trip? What are you talking about? As we continued, I began to understand the situation. But right now, I was more worried about my in-laws. I told my mother-in-law to gather any necessary items, and I jumped into my car. I've been into camping since my youth and often drove on mountain roads, so I had a car suited for rough terrain even before getting married. I thought about getting rid of it when we married, but since my husband used his car for work, I decided to keep it. I hadn't been camping recently, so the car hadn't seen much use, but it proved invaluable now. I reached my in-laws' home in about an hour, and the rain seemed to have let up a bit. Still, it could get worse at any time, and the nearby river was rising, so it was best to leave. I urged my in-laws to hurry into the car and brought them back to our house. Once at home and after serving some tea, they calmed down, and I felt relieved. Then my father-in-law spoke up. Emily, I'm sorry to impose, but I can't reach Tim. Can you tell me what's happening? I couldn't lie anymore. I explained that Tim said he was going on a trip with them and left home. But they knew nothing about it. A sinking feeling took hold of me. I went into Tim's room and found several travel magazines. I had seen him reading them recently, thinking he was planning where to take his parents, and didn't inquire further. But on closer inspection, these magazines clearly targeted couples. There appeared to be several options considered, as the edges of the magazine pages were folded. As I looked through them, I noticed one place was specifically marked with a circle drawn in marker. Moreover, the website for booking that particular lodging was marked quite diligently. How obvious. I booted up the computer in the living room. The history showed access to the lodge's booking site, and a confirmation email to an unusual email address. The reservation was for 2 people, not 3, as it would be for a trip with his parents. I usually use my work computer, so I rarely touched this one. Tim must have let his guard down. He was surprisingly careless. I remembered Tim liked writing and kept a diary. I went back to my husband's room to look for his diary. Surprisingly, I found it easily. With some hesitation, I opened the diary. To my dismay, today's date was marked with the word trip and a heart symbol. Looking back, the diary was full of clear evidence of infidelity. He either didn't feel guilty or reveled in the thrill, writing joyfully about dates. I couldn't recall everything, but it seemed he went on dates on days he claimed to work overtime or on weekends. If it was just suspicious, I might have kept it from his parents and talked with Tim when he returned. But it was too blatant, I couldn't hide it from them. And the blatant infidelity was something my pride couldn't tolerate. As I talked with my in-laws, my phone rang. It was Tim. I asked them to stay quiet and answered in a rushed tone. Hello, where are you right now? A calm voice responded from the other end. At my parents' house. I told you about the trip starting tomorrow, didn't I? I emailed you this afternoon. Why are you so frantic? I was worried about you because I saw on TV that there was heavy rain in the area where your parents live. Oh, yeah, it's raining heavily, but no problem. Is that all? My husband casually lied. He couldn't possibly know the local conditions since he was supposedly on a trip in the opposite direction. My father-in-law was visibly angry in front of me, but my mother-in-law was trying to calm him down. Got it. You're coming back the day after tomorrow from the trip, right? Yeah. I took the week off. After dropping my parents off, I'll stay there. I'll be back in 3 days. Planning such a long infidelity trip. Suppressing my anger, I somehow managed to end the call. Then I said to my in-laws, I'm sorry, but I don't think I can continue with Tim. It's clear he's cheating. He must be planning to end things with me. Well then, I'll file for divorce before he does. That's my pride speaking. Luckily, we don't have kids and my job is going well. I won't have much trouble living alone. In fact, without having to do my husband's share of the housework, life might even be easier. My mother-in-law was crying, and my father-in-law was angry. They kept apologizing to me, but they're in a difficult situation too. It's not their place to apologize. The fault lies with my husband, not them. I figured they could at least get some information about the situation at their house from TV or the internet. Not even bothering to contact his parents to alleviate their worries, what does that say about him? He might be too caught up with his affair, but still, that's just too much. I'm disappointed. I thought he was someone who cherished his parents. After explaining, I asked for their help. Could you help me with something, then? The next day, I took a day off from work and set my plan in motion. By morning, the rain had stopped, and the TV reported no major damage to my in-laws' area. They seemed relieved. After confirming this, I started packing up the house with their help. I called a friend who worked in real estate and found a new place to rent immediately. It was off-season, so there were readily available properties. In between packing, I contacted a moving company, which could move me the next day due to the off-season. Things moved quickly, and I found a place near my office. With the help of my in-laws, most of the packing was done by evening, so I took them home. The next day, I would be leaving the apartment where I lived with my husband. There was no hesitation in my decision to move out quickly. Originally, this apartment was mine, and I still rent it under my name. We thought we'd continue living here until we had kids or bought a house. I had a relatively long relationship with the landlord and would chat whenever we met. I explained the situation over the phone and arranged to cancel my lease by the end of the month. The landlord was surprised but understood and agreed to change the door lock code before my husband returned. When I first moved here, I was perplexed by the unfamiliar number lock, but now I realized the advantage of being able to change it quickly. The next day, the movers took my belongings to the new apartment. I arranged for a courier to send my husband's belongings elsewhere. The new place was surprisingly perfect for me, and thanks to the off-season, the rent was waived for the first month, and the moving costs were reduced. Once settled, I quickly visited a lawyer's office. My in-laws called, worried, but I told them I'd moved safely and would contact them again once I settled down. As expected, my husband called that night. Emily? Where are you? The key won't open the door. The mailbox is blocked too. What's going on?
Hearing my flustered husband, I couldn't help but laugh.
I moved out. What? We're getting a divorce. What?
I said coldly to my astonished husband.
Isn't it obvious? How can I continue a marriage with someone who lies about a family trip to go on an affair?
He fell silent at my words.
And how can you not even contact your own parents during a disaster? That's too much. Disaster? Of course, you know. Haven't you been checking the TV or internet at all? But don't worry, your parents are safe at my place. But you might not be able to return to that house anymore.
As I left the in-laws' house, my father-in-law firmly stated, Tim is no longer welcome here. He must atone for his sins.
Wait, what do you mean? What should I do? Where are my belongings?
My husband began to panic more. But I had no sympathy left.
If you're going to cheat, at least be discreet. I know all about your affairs, her name, her address, the lodge you visited, everything.
He always took notes, and his diary detailed the affair, her identity, even her address. The computer history revealed everything. Was I underestimated, or was he just foolish? Well, it might be a bit of both.
Go through a proper divorce before moving on to the next one.
Then he said something unbelievable.
It's not what you think. You've been busy with work, and we've been eating more ready meals. You've been slacking on the chores.
I lost it.
Slacking on chores? I've been doing all the housework, and you complain? You could have helped out. I asked many times.
He went silent at my outburst.
By the way, your stuff is sent to her place.
His voice changed as I mentioned this.
Wait, why?
He probably thought I sent his belongings to his parents. I didn't want to bother them, especially after the flood, so I sent them to his affair partner instead. By the way, it'll arrive tomorrow, hope her husband doesn't find out. She was a married colleague.
What have you done?
He was yelling, but it was none of my concern.
You're at fault for cheating. I've got enough evidence, and I've hired a lawyer. We're getting divorced. But I thought you tried to win me back if you knew about her. I was speechless. You overestimate yourself. I wouldn't bother winning back someone like you. I ridiculed him and hung up. Later, I sent a certified letter to my husband's company and demanded compensation from him and his affair partner. His belongings' arrival at her place caused trouble, leading to her divorce and claims for compensation from both sides. Neither my husband nor his affair partner could stay at the company, and they resigned. I successfully divorced and received alimony, but I don't know much about what happened to them afterward. However, I still have a little contact with my former in-laws, who send me gifts during Christmas seasons. I heard they've decided not to let my ex-husband return home. Even they don't know where he is now. Returning to single life, I only have to cook and clean for myself, no longer needing to cater to my ex-husband's picky eating habits. On busy days, I can simply relax with a beer and snacks. Somehow, life feels more fulfilling than before.